Okay, I have it. Okay, thank you. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, uh, we want to welcome you once again to another exciting broadcast from the Souls of Black Folk broadcast, airing every Tuesday night at 8 a.m. And before the show ends, you'll get all of the mediums where you can reach us to get some of this fantastic broadcasting and even reach some of the archives that we have. We want to remind everyone about the Final Call newspaper. It's a weekly publication, and you can find it in all your cities right here in America. And the 24-hour Final Call radio, and you can download that app. It doesn't cost you anything. And there you'll get clippings of some of the historic addresses by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and hear from many around our nation and that. And so as we are about to approach the 28th anniversary of the unprecedented historic Million Man March, we're happy to come to you as we're revitalizing our show and doing some restructuring to come back to you with a lot of broadcasting with issues and people of interest to us and that play key roles in all of our survival efforts here in these United States of America. And so want to certainly first welcome my co-host, our own student minister there in Atlantic City, New Jersey, our brother Michael Muhammad. And so for this 28th anniversary of the Million Man March, we have a lot of things lined up that we're going to be doing in the country, even starting today with some of the community give back that's going on all over the country. And we're going right on through to the Day of Atonement, where we are not focusing on many of the things that serve as distractions to our very survival, to give ourselves the kind of focus that we gave on that momentous day, Monday, October the 16th, 1995. So, Brother Michael, tell us who our guest is and acquaint our listening audience with him.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And assalamu alaikum, everyone. And we have with us this day our beloved brother, Councilman Kaleem Shabazz from Atlantic City, New Jersey. Brother Shabazz has been a long-time resident of Atlantic City, New Jersey, and he is also the third ward councilman and also council vice president. He actually serves in the ward where we work out at, where our mosque is located.
Okay.
He currently is he has a long standing of great community service, very well known and loved in our community, brother minister and everyone. He has been appointed to the Urban and Regional Growth Transition Advisory Committee by Governor Phil Murphy here in New Jersey. He currently serves as the chairperson, again, as the City Council's Planning and Development Committee. Brother Kaleem also is a lecturer at Stockton University, and he currently is the president of the Atlantic City chapter of the NAACP. Our brother is extremely active. He is also a member of Masjid Muhammad and also a longtime soldier and helper of the building of Muhammad Mosque number 10 under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So welcome, Brother Kaleem. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome. Well, you know what, Michael, when you went through that thing, he just checks so many of the boxes of the things that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan asked Black men to do when we returned from Washington. Get some spiritual grounding in a house, join an organization that's doing something for the liberation of our people, and getting civically engaged. So welcome to the show, Councilman.
Thank you so much, Brother Minister Rodney and Brother Minister Michael. It's my extreme honor to be a guest here. I am, when Minister Michael asked me would I appear, I was honored and still honored to be a part of this show and to help in any way we can as we move towards reawakening our people and moving us forward.
Okay, thank you. Well, obviously, I guess the first question, were you able to make the march in 1995?
Brother Minister, I am proud to say that I definitely made the march. I was there in that number, as they say. I was honored to be there. In fact, it was a little controversy because I was in the middle of running a campaign. You know about campaigns for a legislative team, and some of the people said, "Well, why are you going to the Million Man March?" And I said, "Well, the greater question would be, why wouldn't I go to the Million Man March?" And so there was a little discrepancy in the campaign about what would be the political impacts of the campaign manager for a legislative team going to the Million Man March. And I said, well, you're gonna have to calculate that because I'm going, and that's it. And I happen to, my sister, older sister, lives in Washington, D.C. So I was able to actually stay with her, and we both went to the march together. And I am happy to report that I am still emotionally tied to seeing that number of people. In fact, that's the largest gathering of people of color in this country, in the history of the country. We were talking about this in one of my classes. The Park Society, the Park Service estimated, I think, 400,000. The organizers, we said 870,000, but whatever number you choose, it is a large, historic, significant number and occasion. I was happy to be there, and happy to again be on this morning to talk about how we are moving forward in 2023.
Yes, well, I do remember the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan deciding that we would have to fight them over the numbers because they wanted to lowball it, and he said this will be a matter of historic record. We'll never get to go back and do this again. And so we went back through all the channels of entry into Washington, D.C. And I remember him sending his son-in-law, who was then the chief of staff, Leonard Farrakhan Muhammad. He sent my regional Minister Don Muhammad on national television to push back on the numbers that they were trying to assign to it. One of the things that we noticed was that on any given Monday, a work day in metropolitan Washington, the turnstile showed that a little over 200,000 people rode the metro. But on that Monday, October the 16th, 827,000 people hit the turnstile. So you can't argue with the numbers. So just from the train alone, we're not even talking about those that drove in, those that came the night or 2 days before, those that lived in the city that just walked over. But we were easy between the Lincoln Memorial and the Capitol building. We were easily far more than 400,000 that can fit in that thing. And you can go back and just look at some of the pictures of the swelling crowd. So
Brother Minister,
I was
also
glad you mentioned the numbers because we did challenge the numbers. They backed off of it. They decided not to keep trying to assign a figure to it because see, they had never done anything like this before. And I was just glad of it, but I'm glad you were able to make it. There are a lot of Black men that are saying, yeah, I was there that day.
Well, Brother Minister, also people didn't calculate the buses. I know here in Atlantic City, we had several buses that went down. Even from my barbershop, we had buses going down. And I just wanted to say real quick, I know that you realize many people thought and said that people wouldn't take off on a Monday and come to Washington, D.C. And I think the fact that that amount of people took off on a Monday and came to Washington, D.C. showed the kind of spirit we had and we still need today.
No, you're
the spirit of the Million
right.
Man March still lives.
And Brother Michael, I believe Brother Arif is trying to come in.
Yes, sir. He's in.
Yeah, we're going to be joined by Brother Minister Arif Muhammad also. And he'll be joining us momentarily. Okay. Yeah, the Saturday was the day that the minister was pressed with, as we did. You know, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I've never known him to engage any kind of large monumental undertaking without trying to bring in counsel. And of course, he turned to people who had done this before in the civil rights movement. And they told him, well, Farrakhan, you know, if you're trying not to do this on a Saturday, you're not going to get the numbers that you want. But, you know, we learned that he really wanted the date today. He wanted October the 7th, the birth anniversary of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but they could not give him that day. They said, but they could give him on a Monday, the 16th. And the 16th, the minister said, well, in numerology, the 1 and the 6 equals 7. So he still had a number to work with. And so it worked out, and we went on a Monday, another unprecedented thing, going on a weekday where people took off work, took away from attending school, and broke away from everything. And so, yeah, we were just very proud men on that day, especially those that worked hard. We're being joined now with, we're honored to have with us a longtime helper, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He is the general counsel now for the Nation of Islam, but for years, not only had he made a run for Congress years ago, but for years he's been a student minister and helper to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And surprisingly, he was the regional minister based in the city of Washington, D.C. in 1995, and that's our dear brother, Abdul Arif Muhammad. Welcome to the program. Brother Arif, you might still be on mute. I guess he'll chime in a minute, but he has joined us. You know, I thought about, you hit the mute button. I thought about the march, and you know, the principal man that convened this march never presented it as solely his idea. He always said the call came from God, but God used me to make the call. And you know, God has always, his pattern, no matter what of the major faiths that we are in, we see in any given time and dispensation, he always uses one man to call all men. And I just saw this as that kind of pattern coming out. And I remember our dear sister, may Allah always be pleased with her, Sister Ava Muhammad, said the thing was, no one ever thought about it. No one ever thought about bringing 1 million people to Washington, D.C. So this was historic. It was unprecedented. And generally, when we went to Washington, D.C. with large numbers, we considered that social capital. And we always wanted to leverage that to pressure government for more things for people who've been marginalized. And, you know, in one sense, that's understandable. But the nature of this march was not to go to white America to plead with white America to change their mind and attitude and heart about us. This was us not going to them. We went to Washington, but we went to stand before the high God at the threshold of his mercy, that we could that we could be the kind of men that could shoulder the responsibility. If we could be reconciled with God, reconciled with his mind, heart, and the principles that constitute being a God or being God-like, then we could shoulder ourselves with the responsibility and wear the mind and spirit of self-determination. And that was the real historic thing that made this march unlike anything that we had gathered, because now we weren't asking President Bill Clinton, we weren't asking the Congress, who all took off that day.
Right.
That was not a national holiday. It should be one, but so I think Brother Arif is having difficulty unmuting Brother Michael, because we can see him, but we can't hear him. So he's asking, is there any technical support? It looked like he was on mute.
He's unmuted on our end. I'm going to.
He's muted on his end or ours?
He's muted on his end.
On his end? He can unmute himself.
There you go. There you go, Brother Arif.
All right. We can hear him now?
Brother Arif, we can hear you now.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Arif. Oh man, we're just honored. Allah. Yes, sir. I was just telling them about your history went long before the Million Man March with the nation, and certainly long after the Million Man March. And I can remember that, as I said before, Brother Arif was the regional minister, so he was at the center of operations. Whatever controversies arose as a result of this call and the mobilization of people like we never have before in this country, at the center of much of it was our dear brother Abdul Arif Muhammad. So I certainly wanted him to share some of his thoughts about all of the things that went into that, from his vantage point, that went into the Million Man March and its great success as a result of the call through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Well, thank you, Brother Student Minister Rodney. Let me, of course, first always just open in the name of Allah. I bear witness there's no God but Allah, and we forever thank God for his intervention in our affairs and raising among us the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and with the two of them, Allah in person, Master Fard Muhammad, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, leaving with us such an exquisite example in our midst in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I greet all of you, brothers, in peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And first of all, thank you for this opportunity. Sorry about the technical glitches.
That's okay.
It's been a while since I've been doing this, but I would say that that day, October 16, 1995, is a day that is etched in the annals of history as a day when something had never been seen before. 1 million, nearly 2 million, we should say, Black men, God, through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, called for 1 million, and nearly 2 million showed up that day. But never before in the history of America had there been seen a demonstration of that magnitude, and one also that was so peaceful, and the spirit of the brothers and the sisters who were there was one of peace. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan called it a glimpse of heaven.
Yes, he did.
Because all strata of our people, you name any ideology, you name any group or organization, you name all of the sectors, political, social, economic, nationalist, religious, all of the different sectors of our community were touched by his call for us to come to that mall in surrender to God, and for all of us to atone to God for our failures as men and as husbands and as fathers, and to come together and seek God's forgiveness, and then be about the work of rebuilding our community and So that day, no work, no school, no play. That day, the president left Washington, D.C., who was Clinton at the time, President
Yeah.
Clinton, and he spoke from another location because the enemy was deeply concerned of the presence of all of these men, not knowing God's hand would be on them. So the enemy was concerned. Of course, Washington, D.C. that day was also shut down, but we're thankful to the great mayor, and may God forever be pleased with him, Mayor Marion Barry,
Mm-hmm.
who literally opened up the entire city to us in Washington, D.C., and turned literally his entire administration into an organizing group that aided us and facilitated us in all of the meetings with the federal sector of government and all of the elements. And I can tell you, I know we don't not have time on this show today, but the elements and the factors and the things that needed to be done when you're putting on an event of that size.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
So on that day, we presented ourselves to God and heard from almost every Black person in leadership of some strata that day. And I was struck, Brother Minister Rodney and brothers,
Mm-hmm.
that on that day, remembering that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, though he worked tirelessly more than anyone, he traveled this country to build the unity among our brothers, letting them
Mm-hmm.
know that we weren't paying their way, they had to pay their own way.
Mm-hmm.
And also that not to bring any weapons. This was not going to be that kind of an event. It was going to be an event where we are presenting ourselves to God, seeking his forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
But on that day, what struck me most as I sat there the entire day from the break of dawn when Fajr prayer was said,
Wow.
that he allowed the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, every person who wanted to speak, he allowed them that platform from which to speak and did not give them any time limits. Look at the magnificence and
Mm-hmm.
graciousness of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So there was this presentation of the unity of Black America. And so that struck me more than anything else because he was patient all day as all others spoke. And I'm reminiscent, Brother Rodney, as we study the scripture, this truly to me was a reflection
Mm-hmm.
of what is written in scripture of Jesus when they said he rode into Jerusalem
Mm-hmm.
on a colt and the ass. And you know, we were taught that the colt was the learned of the people and the ass was the masses. So the masses and the classes, he all came to Washington and he rode into Jerusalem that day as they were singing Hosanna, Hosanna in the
Yes,
heights.
sir. And
All
like you said,
praises to
he
Allah.
told them untie them because we
That's
were all
right.
tied up
That's
in
right.
all of America's distractions.
That's right. Those are some of the initial reflections, and
Yes, sir. Well,
I'll hold it for
you know, it's a couple of things. This morning's Wall Street Journal, there's an article in there about the spike in murders in Washington, D.C., standing out among all of the major cities where homicides are going down. They've gone up about 38% in Washington, D.C., the very city where we convene. And, you know, for me, the germ of what happened that day goes back to 1979 when I first heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He was the sole lone voice in this country talking about what we were doing to each other in the way
yes,
of
sir.
murder, comparing it with the death toll in Vietnam. That's how far back this goes.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and now we have murder on the streets with generations that are out of touch with what happened in 1995, probably don't even really know about the Vietnam War. And it's just, and there's another article in today's Wall Street Journal with Thomas Sewell, one of the Black conservatives. I haven't really dove into it yet, but it's dealing with the problem with social justice. And I'm sure he has some critique about the trajectory of the civil rights struggle. And, you know, I think some of the voices that have never been enlisted, and they had this was a golden opportunity for Black conservatives to get in on the discussion, so that when we hold conferences in this country, they're not lopsided, where we're only listening to a liberal said point of view. And I know the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has trained us not to be afraid of other views, even if they're opposing views, have the strength to listen and to get the contrast and things like that. So I just thought I'd bring those up.
If I could say,
yeah, but go ahead, Brother Kaleem. And Brother Kaleem, so that you and Brother Arif are acquainted, this is our councilman, Brother Arif from Atlantic City, New Jersey. Brother Kaleem Shabazz, who was present at the march. He's also president of the NAACP chapter. They are in Atlantic City, but he's also our councilman, where our mosque study group is located in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And this is Brother Arif, our general counsel, longtime help with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
An honor and privilege, my dear brother.
Yes, sir.
my brother, the same. I was saying before you came on how honored I was when Student Minister Michael asked me to be a guest. We're trying to reflect some of the brilliance of the Million Man March. And I just want to say quickly, we're Muslims, and we see that when Islam is properly implemented, people will follow and support what we're doing. And I think that the minister showed that when people came together from, as you said, Brother Arif, people of all stripes and people of all beliefs. And that just indicates to me that we have even more to do as we see what's happening in our communities across the country. And as Minister Rodney said about Washington, but it's the same thing in varying degrees wherever we're at, was East Coast, West Coast, Midwest. Our people are distressed, dispirited, in bad conditions, and I firmly believe that those of us who understand the what Allah wants us to do to help humanity, it's our job to step forward and to increase. I remember, Brother Mr. Michael, you too young to remember this, but I can remember when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was talking about Muhammad Speaks. He said, I want you to double and hold your double, when we was talking about the distributions of Muhammad Speaks at that time. But I think that even though many of us have done a lot, I think we have to do even more in the time that we're living in to ensure that our people move forward. And
yeah,
that's the time we're living in.
Yeah, and you know, Brother Kaleem, that makes me want to raise another point, because I know I was in a meeting with Dr. Malefi Asante and other nationalists, and I had to remind them, as they look at Muslims and look at Islam as something outside of Black world thought, I said it was a Muslim that popularized the term Black. Without the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we were adverse to even being called Black people. Absolutely. We wanted to be called anything but Black. That's how much our enemy had poisoned our minds in the way of our own self-identification, you know, number one. And, you know, it was another point I was going to make out of that, but I do think that in the Quran, and I just wanted to ask this question, there's a verse that says, would that I had taken away with the messenger. And can we say that some of the horror that we're experiencing nationwide, that at least some of it is coming from forsaking and not taking away with the message? And when I say away, I mean, if a man is preaching that which could only come from God. We want peace in our community, but as I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say, you want peace, but you don't want the way of peace. That's the way of the messenger, as Brother Arif described. It seems like we're forsaking that way, but at the same time demanding that outcome for peace. But we, it's like wanting a cake, but you don't want to deal with the recipe.
Well, Minister Rodney, if I could say this.
Yes, sir.
You pointed out, and Councilman also pointed out, the condition that we see today, now 28 years later from the march. We remember scripture where they said Jesus, and I believe it's after he rode into Jerusalem, that we need to deal with him lest they all go after him.
Go after him. Yes, sir.
And so for the last 28 years, what we have witnessed, and if we go back to the history, immediately after the great success of the march, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was viciously attacked. And all manner of slander was being thrown at him. And the enemy, we have an enemy that they feel that it is not in their interest that we unify. It is not in their interest that we come together.
Yes, sir.
Because God came to separate us and to make us independent and to raise us up to ourselves. And so many distractions were and plans. See? So the scripture says, let us deal wisely with them. See? Lest they multiply and then join on to our enemy and come against us in war. That's the mind of the enemy.
That's the mind.
So when you see 1 million men in unity with each other, and each of them those men and the women that were there as well,
right.
We can never forget the support of our sisters throughout this process and on that day as well. But looking at these men, behind every man, you have another 5 or more or so persons that they may represent. And so to see that the Black nation really coming together and knowing that if such were to occur, then we would, by God's grace, be able to take our rightful place as an independent people, and would have to be dealt with in that respectful manner. According to that, we cannot allow this. It's been the denial objective of the government concerning us for many years, and we know it best through Mr. Hoover's J. Edgar Hoover intelligence program to disrupt, neutralize, and destroy Black leaders and organizations. So what we have to factor in is that from the march, the enemy set afoot to neutralize, disrupt, and interfere with the unity that had begun. And so when we look at it, we have to look at it from that prism as well. But as Councilman said, we now have a chance. We always have a chance to try, with God's help, to raise this again and to come back. The beautiful thing about God is he allows you an opportunity to repent.
Yes, sir.
And to return. So as we are reflecting on this 28th year anniversary of that march, the call for us as we reinvigorate ourselves, renew ourselves, and say, let's breathe in and let's go at it again. So if we did it before, it can be done again with the help of God.
With the help of God.
Well,
Minister, if I could also do
go
a quick
ahead.
commercial for those who are in the area on Monday, October the 30th, which is the birthday of the Honorable Imam W.D. Muhammad, the son of Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Here in Atlantic City at 12 noon, we're going to have a street naming for Imam W.D. Muhammad, and we invite all people of goodwill to join us October 30th, 12 noon in Atlantic City, Madison and Massachusetts Avenue. Minister Rodney, you will appreciate this, where we're going to have the street dedicated to the Honorable Imam W.D. Muhammad is less than 50 feet from where Temple number 10 used to be. Temple number 10 was at 419 Madison Avenue, and we're having this dedication of the street on Madison and Massachusetts Avenue. So, and I just want to take a hat off to my colleague, Councilman Aaron Sporty Randolph. It's his district. He happens to be a Christian brother, but he is supportive of everything that we do in helping our people, and also our mayor, who's supportive of that. So that's going to be Monday, October 30th, 12 noon. We invite everybody to come there. And after that, we're going to have a halal meal at Masjid Muhammad, which is 2018 Atlantic Avenue. We're going to feed people for free there. So I just wanted to say that we have to recognize and uplift the people who have supported us, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Honorable Imam W.D. Muhammad, Minister Louis Farrakhan, and the people who we designate as our leaders and heroes, and people who we want to support. And I just want to say, and I know we all feel this, that as we see some leaders who want to erase the history of our people and say it shouldn't be taught, and want to speak out against wokeism, their term, that we have to get really to our people and let people know what has happened, what can happen, and what we can do again. So I just wanted to say that. Invite everybody who is convenient for, come down to Atlantic City, be with us as we unveil the street naming, and then eat with us if you can on October 30th. Thank you.
Now,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You know, one of the things, Henry Louis Gates, they've been airing again on public broadcast television, that historical documentary, The Black Church.
Black Church.
Of course, it starts with the early slaves being brought here, proving that that initially there were Muslims that were brought here, and Absolutely. They even showed some of the early Black churches that were built where the Arabic writing was still carved in the wood, and they left it there.
Yes, sir.
But they weren't able to practice Islam, and so out of being compelled to reach for something, since we're taught that it's in the nature of man to bow to something, he's going to bow to something. You know, we ended up forming what became known as the Black Church. And of course, in that whole two-part documentary, when they get to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they said this is when a great reverse came. And in religion, we stopped making ourselves the problem. And they said when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came on the scene, he reversed it and said, Black people aren't the problem, white people are the problem. I mean, in the long and short of it, it was a major paradigm shift in the way we thought about faith and everything. But I wanted to read something because 1995 was the Million Man March. By 1997, Women Inspired in Philadelphia had the Million Women March.
That's right.
Right after that, there was the Million Youth March in two places, in the South and one in New York City. But then by the year 2000, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan reconvened us in Washington for the Million Family March. And this time he wanted a document that we could use to work from with a broader coalition of people beyond just the registered membership of the Nation of Islam. And so the national agenda was put together, said by somewhat the input of many organizations. But he also did something else. He convened something within the Nation of Islam. I just wanted to read something because this started one of our early sessions. Master Fard Muhammad's gift as a social reformer, missionary, and modernist was due in part to his ability to read correctly the spiritual, racial, and political discourses of Black and white Americans, Muslim immigrants in America, and the Muslim world. And that's important for us because if you can't read these correctly, you get mixed up and be walking in a way that does not satisfy your current reality.
Exactly.
And you'll have a Quran in your hand still with the inability to address the concerns that are before you because of the understanding that you're working from. And so I just think that this historic day is we're about to get into the 28th anniversary of it, and we want to revisit it because Kwanzaa was made given national recognition. I have to even say reparations now has national recognition, and certainly the Day of Atonement, the anniversary of the Million Man March, it deserves that kind of national recognition, especially to a people who are the main participants in causing themselves the kind of daily pain that's visited upon our members throughout the cities of America.
Well, Minister Rodney, you may remember that in late September of 1995, there was a convening in Howard University's Rankin Chapel, where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and many religious leaders from various, I would say, theological perspectives joined together in doing what you just said and declaring that October 16th would become a holy day, a day that we would recognize and that we would observe. And so we have to be the first ones to continue to remind ourselves and to be
Yes, sir.
among us, and you know, our minds will move on to the other thing. But you know, in America, there are holidays, there are observances. You know, within our nation, we have observances of certain special events and times, and this was one. And so it was declared to be a holy day that we would fast and pray, no work, no school. We would get together and settle our differences. We would atone family members. We would work with our community in the way of conflict resolution. And so we're back here at that now. And so that's why, I mean, we have to pick up that banner again and reestablish these principles that showed us what a great day could be. If we could do it one day, we could do it a year, we could do it 5 years, we can do it. But again, our collective mind has to be in unity and focused. And I did not know who the writer was that you were reading, referring to.
That was from the Atonement Commission.
Right.
It was
and
one of
so,
our first sessions.
And so I'm saying to myself as I listen to it, yes, well, Master Father Muhammad would have a perspective far beyond ours if we believe that Allah intervened in our affairs in his person. So he would have the best insight to the human mind and the human condition. And, you know, the beautiful thing of it is we look at the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that how God has blessed him to be a man who our whole community knows that he's a man that loves his people, and that he has proven over 68 years now of his love and service to God, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and his people, that he is a guide among us. And if we would accept that guide, then we would all be better off. We all accepted it that day on the mall at the Million Man March. So again, as the Holy Quran talks about how they came to the junction of the two rivers, and it said they lost their fish and it got
lost
away.
the fish.
But then when they turned around the morning for their morning meal and said, "What happened to the fish?" And they said, "Oh, it got away and went back into the sea, and none but the devil made us forget." And then they said, so they had to go back, retracing their footsteps.
Their
And
footsteps.
so this is what we're doing. It's important to retrace our footsteps to know how this came about, the things that were involved, and really we're still able to create and re-energize on those principles once again.
Yes, sir. Well, that's well said, and I think that if something works and you lose what worked, you need to retrace your steps and go back.
That's right.
To a thing that works. So I saw where they're going to have the Nubian, the Black Summit, and according to the Final Call newspaper, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan may be providing again the closing remarks because it's a virtual convention. But there are people that are obviously still engaged with trying to bring about the kind of repair for Black America. I just keep raising the point: are we operating like a people that forgot that fish? Mm-hmm. And saying, we're trying to move on and we're struggling like on a hamster wheel, where we got motion but not progress in too many areas of the Black world. And it made me think about when you said, if we don't stop him now, the whole world will go after him. Well, sometimes when you think in a domesticated framework of mind, you don't think about international affairs, but the Spirit led the minister to go on a world friendship tour. And we found out that everywhere he went, they said, we saw the Million Man March. And so we ended up, friends were made for him all over the world. And he made those friends for us, if we see it rightly.
That's correct.
Yeah. And so it's this work, it has a scope, and it takes me back to I think it was 1986 in September, when he talked about the self-improvement. He said that this would be a launching pad for a worldwide movement. And I mean, we were just sitting in study group circles at the time that was said. But man, this thing has gone global for sure. And I just wanted to say, Brother Arif, you brought up how they fight tooth and nail to keep us from the successes, as Brother Kaleem was talking about, honoring Imam Wharfdeen Muhammad, and doing, we're not coasting into events to celebrate victories and people who have fought for our betterment without somebody fighting tooth and nail to make us fail.
That's right.
And so one of the things that materialized in the Nation of Islam, I noticed after the Million Man March, was a research team materialized. And what you all have been able to do, in which case Brother Arif serves on that, you all have been able to make real what sometimes people speculate, they trying to stop us, they're trying to do this. And people say, you all keep talking about they, who? Well, the research team has showed us who. If we would read the things that you all have compiled over the years, it has made real these claims that, as the minister said, if you put a seed in the ground where nothing was growing, when you wait for what you planted to come out, something comes up that you didn't plant, those weeds. And he said, that's to teach us in this universe, everything got an enemy. And and so I am happy that research team, I can draw from something, because it makes real. We can start putting, instead of using pronouns like they and that, we can give you some names now. We can give you some proper nouns and tell you exactly who's doing this, only because of that kind of research.
Well, we have to thank again the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who called into existence, and we'll never forget what he said to us, which is, first is always the word of God. And
yes, sir.
But then we also have to do the research to show that which bears witness. So you're right, bringing up facts and history. And as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, history is most attractive of all of our studies. History is most attractive to reward our research. And so to actually know and to be able to have, as we would say, actual facts
Yes, sir.
on
Actual facts.
what has occurred strengthens you as you do the battle in the spiritual war that we are engaged in. And I do think, Student Minister Rodney, you pointed out something I don't want us to forget, which is the trajectory of where the march led us. And you're right, 1995, the Million Man March. And then 2000, it was the Million Family March.
Right.
Right. And then in 2005,
right,
it was the Millions
It's more
More movement.
right,
And where that was important because we really were trying to build this movement for Black people.
that's right,
And of course, by the time we get to 2015, 10-10-15 as we called it,
that's right,
it was called Justice or
or
Else.
else,
It was right in the midst of so much killing of our people across this country, and the injustice with the police killing of our brothers and sisters. And so, he's a guided man who is bringing us on a path. But when you think of all of these meetings that were held at the National Mall, on the steps
yes, sir,
of the U.S. Capitol, this has not happened in the history of Black people and their struggle.
that's right, that's right,
That from that Capitol, these messages were delivered. And I think that we really do need to go back and see what God has done and was doing as he guided his minister from Million Man March, Million Family March, Millions More Movement, Justice or Else.
justice,
And you had in each of those subsequent meetings hundreds of thousands, if not a million or so there.
yes,
So, these are things that we should examine and contemplate, because nothing is impossible if we, as we did on that mall in 1995, pledged to God that we would accept our responsibility
yes, sir,
and do for ourselves what is required.
yes, sir. That's well said. And I think that the spirit of the march, if I could just say, it lent itself more to self-determination, do for self, than it did appealing to someone else. I mean,
That's
we have, as I said at Jumar yesterday, we have given over appraisal power. If I find a relic or some jewel or precious stone, I don't know how, I'm not in the profession, I don't know how to properly assess its value. So I tend to go to some expert that knows how to look at it and tell me what it's worth, what I could get for it. But appraisal power is in the hands of that person that is giving me that value. And we keep giving appraisal power back over to someone who, as Brother Arif said, it's not in his vested interest to assign great value to us. So he's going to always come back with a report that puts us in a dim light, and it's a devaluation of us, as opposed to an appreciation building on the qualities that we have as a people. And I just feel that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, this being his birth anniversary, he's proof that we were not worthless, and as the builders of civilization rejected that stone, made us the waste. God took one. It only takes one to prove that there's something in the rest of them there. But you got to have one committed, and thank God for the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, a committed man. He made Black popular. He changed the discussion on the question of God in this country. And I think that what he did, I remember being called by the Philadelphia Inquirer when the towers came down in New York City, and they said it's Islam inside the prisons. and they wanted a comment on about Islam being in the prisons. I told them we didn't put it there. The Justice Department did that. When you took the Honorable Elijah Muhammad off the street and put him in prison, along with 100 members of the Fruit of Islam, he didn't stop teaching what he was teaching on the outside when he went on the inside of the wall. And so now you can't get Islam out of the prison. And you do better to let the real teacher of Islam today go into prison, and you would have a better order of things. So, but I appreciate you all being on recounting. We got to have another discussion on this, and we're hoping to focus on the national agenda from here on out, because I remember the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan saying, you know, teaching alone doesn't change people. It takes programs and methods. And so we have a program on the back page of our newspaper, and other tools that we can use to bring that. Yes, Brother Kaleem.
Yeah, I just want to say, Brother Minister Rodney, Brother Minister Michael, and Brother Arif, I am extremely optimistic that we can unify our people. I think for a couple of reasons. I think, I know that Islam is the spark that is going to help bring us together. In addition to that, I know that the conditions, the pushback that we are receiving because of the progress that we made is going to bring us together. And I believe that, especially in this month of October, I don't know about y'all, but I think the month of October has a lot of significance, spiritual significance, theological significance for us. I believe that we're going to make strides, and I think that we have allies. We have allies in our Christian community. We have allies in people who don't even profess a faith, but who believe in dignity and civil rights and social justice. We have allies in our Jewish community. I believe that there are more people in this country who want to do the right thing than who want to be associated with the spirits of darkness and oppression and suppression of people. I think it's just our job to coalesce those people, to call to their higher natures, and to appeal to them. And I believe if we do this, as it says in our prayers that we make, we are praying not just to go through the rituals of prayer. We are praying to have the spirit and the energy and the vision to implement what we're saying in our prayers and asking Allah for us to do. So I think that we are on the cusp of doing great things in this country, in our communities of people of color. And I think we just got to keep pressing forward. And I just want to thank y'all for the opportunity and let me be with you. And again, invite everybody who can come to Lang City on October 30th as we show that we're going to recognize one of our heroes.
I have to say, though, I was at a meeting at City Hall years ago with Imam Waterthin Muhammad.
I remember you.
After I spoke, he came up and said, my father taught America the ugly, or some word he used to say what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad described, but he called it America was the beautiful. And the press, they pressed me about that. They said, well, do you agree with Imam? And I said, well, if America's going to be beautiful, it's a lot of steps she got to take to get there.
Right.
Because if she's doing what she's doing right now, I cannot go on record saying America the beautiful. And I'll say this, what I heard from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan the last time I was in Chicago, he said, what we're about to go through, when we get through it, we're all going to be friends.
Right.
So, so just from what he said there, I can take some of what you said, but I do think that we, you know, even as Dr. King took great caution, he came to Chicago, and he took an apartment on the West Side. And a lot of people don't remember Dr. King moved his entire family on the West Side.
I remember that, absolutely.
And he recounted that in 30 days, he saw an ugly change in his children living under those conditions on the West Side of Chicago.
Right.
And so he called for rent strikes. And when he called for rent strikes, unfortunately, the Jewish community came out some of their organizations calling him an anti-Semite. But Dr. King wrote that the Negro, as he described us then, the so-called Negro, can expect the well-meaning Jew to be on their side when these bad elements among their own people choose to take a position against us. And I think that's one of the unfortunate realities. You mentioned we got allies in the Jewish community. If we do, they're only allies as long as their folks don't call them to circle their wagons. And that we got to have a hard discussion on truth to get to real Black Jewish relations, because right now it'll be a master-slave relationship if we don't honor God's truth.
Well, Minister, that's where we come in. That's where Islam gives us wisdom and the understanding at how to present ourselves. It says presented in the best manner, in the best teaching. And I remember that. I mean, that was 1999 in Philadelphia when we had that meeting, and that's when we had a convention in Philadelphia, 1999. So,
right. And I respected the imam, and you know, the minister always taught me. He said, brother, the imam's knowledge of the Quran was superior to what they had in the Muslim world. Absolutely. But when he was without an economic base, he went back to them, though they operating, and he operated with a superior understanding because his schooling started from his father. He and Malcolm X were taught, you know, greatly in that sense. And I think if our brother was still alive, you'd see him moving more and more and more back toward what his father had established, because realizations were coming to him as he dealt with the reality of the so-called Negro here in America. But nevertheless,
Rodney,
we all are moving toward that. Yes, sir, Brother Arif.
If I could, in conclusion, say, first of all, it's a privilege to be on to speak.
Yes, sir.
On the reflections of October 16th, 1995, and all of the other marches that came. I want to say, just in terms of our situation as a people, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we have to keep in mind that our problem is a spiritual problem.
Yes.
It is rooted in God. And as the scripture said, our condition was such that God would have to come. The scripture preaches us that he would come to see about our condition. And he did, and he raised among us at his coming Master Fard Muhammad, who intervened in our affairs. And we say Allah intervened in our affairs in his person and raised the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and missioned him to reform us mentally, morally, spiritually, socially. And so if we recognize that the root of our problem is spiritual and that our condition was such that God himself had to make his appearance and raise one to affect us in a way to get us out from under what we have suffered for 460 plus years in this country of some of the, as he wrote, the worst treatment ever received by any human being. And he loved us enough, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, that before he went to the next part of his mission, because we believe him to be alive. And so he left us with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who is continuing in that spiritual mission to get us to recognize that God is present among us and he is our greatest defender. And as we're taught that Allah God would fight our battles if we submit to him. And so as we reflect on what the message of the march was, which was to atone to God, stand before God and atone to him for our failures. We now have 28 years later that same opportunity.
Yes,
to
sir.
Continue that atonement, reconcile and accept our responsibility with God with us, because that is what makes us who we are. And as long as we keep that center, whatever we do socially, politically, economically, all of it's tied to that. And those who would be allies then they will manifest.
They will.
But so many have shown that they are not allies. And so we're also living in the time of judgment. As you heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say, the war of Armageddon has begun, Savior's Day. So we're in that hour. So we keep our mind focused on God and self and submit to do his will, which is to benefit our rise, then God, I believe, will bless us to come through this, and those that are allies will be blessed to succeed as well.
I appreciate that, and you're absolutely right. I mean, a large part of what made the violin concerts the success that they were, you know, some Jewish parties working very close with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, which he shared, and which is a part of the history. I mean, it beats back the false arguments of his hatred for any people, just based on who they are. So I thank you for that. And so, you know, we're going to close on that: atonement, reconciliation, responsibility. Those are just key words for us to shoulder ourselves with a mind and spirit of self-determination. We want to thank our guests, Councilman Kaleem Shabazz, and our General Counsel for the Nation of Islam and Student Minister Abdul Arif Muhammad, longtime helper to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, right at the center of all the events of that historic day, October 16th, 1995. And we're celebrating again this month, the 28th anniversary of the Million Man March. So thank you all. Let's keep up the good fight. God bless you.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, my brothers.
Walaikum salam.
Alaikum salam.